Unlocking Biblical Secrets. Break free from any addiction. Today's shocking truth revealed. In a world where the unexplainable often lurks just beyond our understanding, one man's journey would uncover the strange, the forbidden, and the shocking truths hidden deep within ancient scripture. David Monroe, a humble librarian turned accidental investigator, stumbled upon an age-old secret that threatened to unravel everything he thought he knew about addiction and what it truly means to be free. One rainy afternoon, as thunder rumbled and raindrops beat against the window like tiny whispers, he found an obscure book tucked away on the topmost shelf, its cover marred and worn. The pages, yellowed and fragile, held cryptic illustrations of ancient rituals and verses that seemed to pulse with a life of their own. They spoke of forgotten practices, powerful enough to break chains stronger than iron, addictions to substances, behaviors, even toxic relationships. With each word, a chill ran down his spine, as if the book itself had a heartbeat. As he read on, the air thickened with an electric tension. It detailed rituals long buried beneath layers of modern skepticism. One passage caught his eye: "To unlock your shackles, the hallowed words of transformation must be uttered in pure conviction." What did that mean? Was David really being asked to say these slivers of scripture out loud? The thought sent a shiver of panic racing through him. His mind wandered to the faces of the people he loved, their struggles, their battles with addiction that seemed impossible to conquer. He closed the book, heart pounding. Could something so bizarre, so mystical really hold the key? And what about the people who had tried this before him? Were they simply delusional? Or had they uncovered a truth so profound, it terrified them into silence? Just then, he heard a creaking sound behind him. A sensation of being watched prickled the back of his neck. He turned, but the aisles remained empty, shadows skimming across the dusty shelves. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads-up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." With his heart racing, David flipped through the pages once more, each rustle echoing like a countdown to a revelation. The final line of the passage lingered in his mind: "Beware the shadows that seek to claim your voice. Trust the whispers, and you shall be free." Who were these shadows? The air felt heavy with secrets ready to burst. The book held answers, but also something more sinister. David's fingers trembled as he closed it again, the air around him thick with an answer waiting to be unearthed. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: he was not alone in this search for liberation. Would he dare to voice the ancient words, or would he stumble into the darkness that surrounded every seeker of truth? David took a deep breath, the weight of the book pressing like a lead anchor in his hands. The shadows around him seemed to linger longer, moving just out of sight, yet never truly gone. Each whispered echo was a warning that tugged at the edges of his mind. Could he really speak those ancient words? A sudden gust of wind rattled the window, forcing thick raindrops to splatter against the glass. It felt like a call to action. He was drawn to the book, as if it were pulling him into a world far removed from reality. With shaky hands, he opened it yet again, scanning for the passage that had sparked a flicker of hope. "Hallowed words of transformation," he murmured under his breath, the haunting melody of the phrase slipping through his lips like a prayer. A flicker of energy shot through the room, and the lights flickered ominously. David froze. Had he imagined that? He squinted into the dim light, searching for movement among the rows of musty books. The creeping sensation of being watched tightened around his throat. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting, warping into shapes that seemed almost sentient. "Stay calm," he whispered to himself, but the words felt hollow. He couldn't ignore the prickling in his gut. The air was thicker now, almost electric. David remembered the final warning from the book more clearly as the weight of its meaning bore down on him. Everything inside him screamed to run, to shut the book and scramble for safety. But outside that library, he knew the struggle of addiction awaited friends and family, like predators lying in wait, hungry and relentless. Determined, he gulped down his fear, cleared his throat, and read aloud the passage that had mesmerized him before. The words flowed like a stream, their rhythm binding him to purpose. To unlock your shackles, the hallowed words of transformation must be uttered in pure conviction. As he finished, the silence was deafening. He felt foolish, like a child summoning joy with a forgotten bedtime story. Nothing had changed until it did. The shadows seemed to lean in closer, their shapes sharp and defined now, whispering back to him in an unholy cacophony. "Who are you?" David called out, fear clawing at his voice. "What do you want?" In an instant, a figure stepped forward from the darkness, its face obscured, but the malevolence radiated from it like heat from a fire. It looked almost human, but twisted as if reality itself had been warped in the shadows from which it emerged. "You have begun to unlock secrets that ought to remain buried," it hissed, voice slithering around him. "You tread on dangerous ground, David Monroe." David's heart drummed in his chest, each beat a reminder that he was in over his head. Every instinct urged him to flee, yet curiosity held him captive. "What do you know about freeing oneself?" he pressed, desperation mixing with a righteous indignation that bubbled up. The figure laughed, a sound that chilled him to the bone. "Freedom? You mistake chains for light, seeker. What you think you know pulses with a reality you cannot comprehend. Surrender now, or be consumed." David's breath stalled. He felt the book slip through his fingers, landing with a thud at his feet. The echoes of the words he had just uttered hung in the air, heavy with impending consequence. "Will you dare to learn the truth, or will the shadows claim you next?" The challenge rippled through the air, leaving David teetering on the edge of an abyss. He could either walk away or plunge deeper into dark waters where the secrets of addiction awaited, waiting to be confronted or perhaps to ensnare him forever. What would he choose? The path to liberation or the shadows that loomed ever closer? The answer felt like a heartbeat away, but was he ready to face what lay beyond? David's heart pounded like a war drum, each thud echoing the urgency of the moment. He needed to decide, and he needed to decide fast. The figure loomed closer, a silhouette woven from nightmares. Dark tendrils whipped around it, as though the very shadows were alive, wrapping around his throat like a noose that he could still feel the weight of the book at his feet, calling him back to its pages, back to the words that had pushed him to this precipice. Was this really about addiction? Or had he opened a door to something more insidious? The concept of freedom danced before him like a flickering flame, tempting and treacherous. "Tell me," he demanded, voice shaking, "how do I break free? What does it take?" The figure's laughter resonated, the sound a cruel mockery that drew a shudder from deep within him. "You think knowledge is the key, don't you? But the truth is much darker than your conscience can bear. You risk everything with your pursuit. Are you prepared for the horrors that come with enlightenment?" The shadows peeled away for an instant, revealing a glimpse of the figure's face. A sinister grin stretched dangerously wide, eyes glinting with malice. David felt bile rise in his throat, and the room seemed to tilt, darkness swirling like a storm above him. "Think about your so-called freedom." The figure took a step closer, its voice now a whisper tinged with venom. "With awareness comes suffering. One way leads to liberation, the other to madness. Choose wisely, David." Madness? He echoed, a knot tightening in his chest. What had he just awakened? The shadows pulsed around him, the air heavy with reckoning. "What do you want from me?" "Your soul," it said, the words dripping with malice. Then, just like that, the figure lunged, and the world around him went black. Everything spun. The silence was deafening, and David's pulse quickened, fear swirling in tandem with confusion. When the darkness faded, he found himself standing in a different place. The library had vanished, He now stood in an alleyway, slick with rain and strangely familiar, a stark reminder of nights lost in his battle against addiction. Trash lay strewn about, the scent of despair clung to the air. The flickering neon signs of a bar barely lit up the darkness, and for a moment, he thought he could hear laughter, the sounds of clinking glasses mingling with whispered secrets. No, David breathed out, recognizing this place as a mirror of his past. He felt a pull toward the bar, an invisible string tugging at him. Just down that road was the comfort that addiction once offered. He had fought so hard to escape these chains, yet here he was, facing the very thing he had tried to leave behind. The oppressive weight of decision pressed heavily upon him. Should he move towards the bar, plunge back into the old shadows that had nearly consumed him, or step away, forging a new path illuminated by hard-earned clarity, albeit one fraught with uncertainty? And yet, in the distance, he could sense the figure re-emerging from the gloom, lurking just outside the realm of his vision, waiting for him to falter. "Make your choice, David Monroe," it hissed once more, its voice a chilling echo that compelled him to stand still. Just then, a shatter rang out, snapping David back. A window broke from the bar's facade, that sound resonating like a gunshot in his mind. The moment he swiveled his head to look, a flash of movement caught his eye, a figure scrambling away from the building into the shadows. Who was that? He murmured in disbelief. Had he perhaps stumbled upon something bigger than himself? As he took a hesitant step forward, David knew one thing for certain: what he had uncovered was only the beginning. There was no going back. He was in the game now, not just for himself but maybe for someone else too. What truth would unravel next in this dark dance? There was no turning back, something was about to change. David felt, deeper than ever before, the chilling question lingering in the air: would his next step bring life or lead to an irretrievable fate? David took a step, then another, his heart thudding in his chest like the pounding of war drums. Memories flooded back, the pockmarked walls of the alley, the laughter, the shadows that promised refuge but delivered despair. He was on the precipice again, caught in a current that felt impossibly familiar yet harrowing. The shattered window glinted ominously, shards reflecting the chaotic flicker of the neon light. Curiosity clawed at him. Who was escaping this time? A part of him itched to run after the figure, to chase down the secrets that danced just out of reach. But a far more profound fear gripped his throat. He could already hear the echo of that taunting voice, pressing upon him, urging him to step into the abyss. David, a whisper carried on a gust of wind, chilling him to the core. "Stop!" he shouted, spinning around, desperate for reassurance that he truly was alone. But the shadows just tightened, swirling with a mind of their own, mocking his bravado. That figure, that monstrous puppeteer manipulating the darkness, had given him a choice. And now, as the echoes of his past surged and twisted within him, he wondered, did he even know what freedom meant anymore? The allure of the bar beckoned him like a siren-esque call, promising solace, but he didn't want to fall into that trap again. Not now. Not when he had fought so hard. But he had no time to linger in these thoughts. The scraping sound of hurried footsteps splintered the silence. The figure he had seen from the bar was now inching out of the shadows, a blur in the darkness. Without thinking, David called out, "Hey! Wait!" The figure paused, then turned partially, just enough for David to glimpse a face obscured by a hood, a flash of fear flickering in the shadowy depths. "You shouldn't be here," it hissed, veiled in panic. "They watch, always watch." "Who? What do you mean?" David stepped forward, but before he could reach the stranger, something cracked through the air like a whip, and the hooded figure suddenly bolted down the alley's narrow path. Adrenaline surged through David, overriding the lingering fears. He followed instinctively, the pace of his heart matching the frantic rhythm of his feet. As he chased, the world around him blurred, the wet pavement, the distant laughter of the bar, the shadows warped into grotesque figures, urging him to turn back. "Stop!" he yelled, desperation lacing his voice. He had to know. Was this person just as lost as he was? Or did they hold the key to whatever dark truth awaited? The alley dead-ended abruptly, forcing the figure to confront a brick wall. David's lungs burned as he caught up, the desperation of the moment pressing down like a weight on his shoulders. "Who are you? Why are you running?" The stranger turned, face contorted in terror. "You don't understand. They're coming for you. You think you can flit between shadows and light? You have no idea what's at stake." "Who's coming?" David pressed, his voice rising, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. I can't explain now." The figure glanced behind, panic overtaking. "You opened a door that can't be closed. There's no escaping this spiral. You need to choose before it chooses for you." Before David could demand more, a chill swept through the alley. The shadows surged forward, pressing against them like a wall. A whispering wind curled around his ears, soft yet menacing. "I can help you," the stranger claimed, but fear clung to their voice. "But we must hurry." "We? What do you know?" David asked, clenching his fists, fear battling hope. With the figure's eyes wide and frantic, a shimmer passed between them, a desperate bond forming in the face of intertwining destinies. Just as he felt a glimmer of understanding, the shadows lunged, roaring with rage. "Run!" The stranger shouted, their voice cutting through the dark. David hesitated, but the weight of those malevolent eyes behind him urged him into motion. They were entwined in a devastation far larger than himself. What truth lingered beneath the surface? He had to decide, would he trust this stranger, or would he plunge into the abyss? Alone, as the darkness surged around him, David could barely make sense of it all. Would he listen to the fears lurking in his mind, or would he take a risk, cutting through the shadow for the sliver of light? The chase had just begun, and the real terror waited just out of sight. Would he survive, or would he vanish into the void? What lay beyond that choice, beyond this crossroads of fate, glimmered just beneath the threshold a truth so harrowing it threatened to swallow him whole. David's feet pounded against the concrete as he sprinted into the unknown, the adrenaline flooding his veins with urgency. The guttural roar of the shadows echoed around him, an ever-present reminder that he was racing against something monstrous. He glanced back at the hooded figure, who was now trailing just behind him, gauging their eyes, filled with both fear and determination. "Where are we going?" he shouted over the hollow wind that whipped through the alleyway. He could hear the shadows screeching now, a cacophony of distorted Morse code, warning him against his choice. "To the gate!" The stranger yelled back, their voice strained. "There's a way out, a place where they can't reach you." "But if we don't move now," their voice faded into a chilling silence that stretched out the tension between them. The breathing in David's chest grew frantic. He had no idea what awaited them at this so-called gate, but the heavy weight of dread clouded his thoughts. The path narrowed, the shadows clawing at his heels, and suddenly, a flicker of light pierced through the darkness ahead. He felt a surge of hope. "Is that it?" he yelled eagerly. The glow pulsed like a beacon, pulling him closer, but just as he moved to step into the light, a moaning wail emerged, a sound that seemed to clutch at his gut. "No!" The stranger pulled him back just as a shadow lunged from the wall, thick and alive, tearing at the fabric of the light. "Not yet." David stumbled back, heart racing, as the hooded figure shoved him aside. "You have to trust me. Just hold on. It gets worse from here." As if mocking their struggle, the walls of the alley began to tremble, blood-like streaks oozing from the cracks. Each pulse of the light shrank, flickering dangerously as shadows argued with its intent. They seemed sentient, writhing in anger, desperate to reclaim what was theirs. "What are you doing?" he shouted, panicking. "Why isn't it working?" The stranger's eyes were wild, glistening with desperation and an edge of resolution. "The light is weak, but it can grow. You have to believe it. Together." The shadows writhed in anticipation as David's heart raced, caught in the storm between doubt and fragile trust. Could he truly believe in the stranger, in this flicker of hope amidst the engulfing murk? "Together." The figure urged again, reaching out. David hesitated, blood pounding in his ears, then instinct kicked in. He took a few steps forward, grasping the stranger's hand, squeezing tightly in an act of both faith and fear. A rush surged between them, warm energy coursing through his body, flickering like the light ahead. Suddenly, the shadows reeled back, hissing in retreat, even as the light grew, expanding with fervor. David couldn't pull his gaze away. The light enveloped him like a soothing embrace, calming the terror surging within, but just then, a piercing scream shattered the moment. The shadows, now shrieking in agony, surged back forward, clawing desperately at the brightness that had momentarily quelled them. David's stomach dropped as he realized the truth. The shadows were fighting for control, and if they weren't careful, they would come crashing back harder than before. "David, you need to focus," the figure shouted, still holding on to him. "Think about what freedom means to you. What you truly want." Thoughts crashed into him, images of laughter, sunlight, the warmth of friendship, the possibility of a future unshackled by the chains of his past. "I want," he started, unsure, but the darkness closed in, choking out his resolve. "Say it," the figure demanded, holding his gaze. "What do you want? You can't let the shadows overwhelm you." The scream of the shadows swelled, mingling with his heart pounding like a war drum. Above the cacophony, David shouted, "I want to be free." The world shifted. The glowing light flared, radiant and fierce, forcing the shadows to howl in defeat. And as they recoiled, a doorway appeared, a shimmering portal enveloped by the very light that had fought for them. But beyond that threshold, a shiver of uncertainty coursed through him. Did freedom truly lie ahead, or would stepping through lead them into an even darker fate unknown? "You have to choose now," the figure urged, eyes locked onto David's, desperate yet determined. As the portal pulsed with that promise of escape, David sensed the shadows lingering at his heels. If he stepped through, would he leave them behind, or invite them along? All he needed to do was jump, but what awaited him on the other side twisted inside him. What if the risk was worth it? What if freedom was a mirage just like the others? But in the heart of that decision, David felt the suffocating pressure of time. Behind him, the shadows were roaring for him, more relentless than ever, and in that split moment, he knew his choice would change everything. What awaited him through that shimmering door? Freedom or doom? Time ran thin, and the choice loomed like a coffin in the dark, ready to seal his fate. Was he ready to confront what lay ahead? David stood frozen, the pulsating light just inches away, drawing him in with a promise that felt almost irresistible. The shadows raged behind him, their growls transforming into a malicious cacophony, feeding off his hesitation. He felt the cool grasp of fear tightening its hold on his throat. "Now, David," the stranger urged, their voice cutting through the storm of his thoughts. In that moment, time stretched. He could feel every heartbeat reverberating through the air, each thud resonating like a ticking clock. The shadows clawed at the edges of his vision, their whispers curling around his mind, taunting, "You can't escape us. You belong to the dark." He squeezed the stranger's hand tighter, the warmth grounding him amidst the chaos. "What if it's worse on the other side?" he shouted, battling against the fierce grip of doubt. "Fear won't save you," the figure shot back, voice unwavering. "Trust in the light. Trust in us." With a deep breath, he searched for a spark of resolve, anything that could drown out the shadows. David thought of laughter, the taste of summer air, and the thrill of chasing freedom with open arms. Memories flashed, like snapshots in a flickering film: his mother's gentle smile, his best friend's encouraging words. "I can't let them win," he murmured, the words barely escaping his throat. Just then, a shadow lunged forward, a grotesque blend of darkness and despair. It surged like a wave crashing against the flickering light. The cold seeped into David's skin, and he shivered, feeling more trapped than ever. "I want to live," he shouted, voice raw with desperation. "I want to be free." The moment those words escaped him, the light responded. It flared brighter, casting away doubt like a purging fire. The portal shimmered, growing larger, more inviting. But then, unexpectedly, a deep, rumbling growl filled the air, a sound so primal it made the ground tremble beneath his feet. The shadows, enraged, surged toward him, a ravenous wave threatening to swallow everything. Panic surged in David's chest as he caught glimpses of their twisted forms, faces wretched with torment, mouths stretched into eternal screams. "Jump!" The figure urged again, pulling him closer to the threshold. "I can't leave you," David protested, eyes darting between the bright portal and the menacing tide of shadows. "I can't hold them back for long. You have to take the leap." The figure's eyes bore into his, urging him to believe, to trust the light was real. David took a shaky step, trembling, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. He felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to leap. Everything screamed at him to turn back, yet a spark of courage blazed in his chest. It was time to make his move. 1-2 The figure's voice melded with the chaos around them, numbers ticking down like a countdown to freedom or doom. 3. David shouted and jumped into the portal. As he dove into the shimmering light, the darkness clawed at him, their screams lashing out against his flesh like knives. Then, suddenly silence. The cacophony faded, replaced with a serene stillness. David opened his eyes, blinking against the brightness surrounding him. What greeted him was unlike anything he'd ever known. A landscape unfurled before him, shimmering and vibrant, an expanse of colors he had only dreamed of. The air was crisp and clean, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the promise of freedom. But as he took a step forward, he felt a tug on his heart, a voice soft yet insistent, whispering from the darkness he had just crossed. "You can't escape us, we're still here." David froze, the truth crashing down like an icy wave. Was this really freedom, or just another layer of the illusion? Uncertainty gnawed at him. The shadows may have been behind him, but their grip still lingered, lurking just at the threshold of his mind. He glanced back at the portal, realizing the choice had not yet fully been made. Would he face the shadows once more or forge ahead into this new world? The question loomed heavy in the air, filled with the promise and threat of what lay ahead. What awaited him in a world forged by light, and how deep did the shadows reach into this new existence? David stood on the edge of a vibrant new world, the echoes of his leap still pulsing in his veins. The vibrant colors danced around him, but his heart sank as anxiety wrapped around him like a vice. What if this place was just a facade? What if the shadows had tricked him? He could still hear that insistent whisper clawing at his mind, curling around the edges of his heartbeat. "You can't escape us." Shaking his head in defiance, David stepped forward. The grass beneath his feet felt warm and inviting, and the air was filled with laughter, children playing, the soft melody of music, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. It was a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness that had chased him. But as he moved deeper into the landscape, a nagging doubt clung to him, like a shadow trailing just out of sight. "Look at this place," he murmured, stunned by the vibrant beauty. Trees sprinkled with pink and gold blossoms swayed under a sky that seemed to shimmer with each passing moment. He turned in circles, his eyes wide with wonder, trying to soak in every detail. But behind that wonder, fear simmered, whispering that something was not right. Suddenly, a figure appeared out of the haze, stepping lightly onto the path ahead. It was a woman, dressed in flowing robes, her face radiant. She approached him with an expression of understanding carved deeply into her features. "Welcome, David," she said, her voice soft but strong. "You've crossed into the realm of possibilities." "What does that even mean?" he stammered, scanning her for answers that he craved, yet hesitated to accept. "Am I free? Did I escape?" His heart raced as anticipation pushed him toward desperation. Freedom is complex. Here, you can create your own path, but the shadows still linger. They follow you, waiting for a moment of weakness. She reached out, her hand hovering just inches from his. "You must confront what you left behind." David's breath caught in his throat. I thought I was done with them." That jumping was the end of it. The confusion twisted in his gut, and for a split second, he considered turning back to the portal, to the dark he fought against. You have the power to break free, but it won't be easy. Her eyes darkened, and he felt a pull of familiarity in her gaze. Your memories shape you, David. Embrace them, face them, and the shadows will weaken. But how? He felt small under the weight of her stare. How do I confront something that feels so powerful? By understanding your past, she replied, her calm demeanor contrasting sharply with his rising panic. Only then can you transcend it. David took a step back, the warmth of the colorful world now clashing with the cold dread that coiled around his heart. What if it's too much? What if I can't? Only you can answer that, she said, resolute. In this realm, the darkness transforms with your choices. Choose to confront it, or choose to let it rule you. His instincts screamed at him to flee back into the bright expanse, but something more profound tugged him to stay. What did he truly want? Was it worth risking the only glimpse of peace he had found? Swallowing hard, he raised his chin. Then I'll confront it. I want to let it win again. As he turned to face the vast landscape before him, the vibrant colors began to flicker, merging into deep shades of the very darkness he sought to overcome. The whispers grew louder, the shadows swirling around as if to mock his resolve. He felt them closing in again, and panic surged like icy claws around his heart. David, the woman whispered urgently, stay true to your path. Trust in the light. But as he took one more step forward, a chilling shriek echoed through the air. It reverberated against his very bones, making the ground tremble underneath him. His heart raced as he stumbled back, caught between the pull of the path ahead and the eerie echoes from behind. What lay ahead was unknown, sure, but was the fear of collapsing back into the familiar darkness worse than facing what came next? How much hold did the shadows really have over him? The truth loomed ahead. Pulsing with energy, but the chaos behind a familiar darkness called him back. Would he have the strength to confront it, or would the shadows drag him back into their suffocating grasp once more? David's heart pounded like a drum as he stared into the swirling colors around him. It was beautiful and horrific at once. The vibrant hues seemed alive, breathing, shifting as if aware of his uncertainty. But that shriek, a piercing reminder of the shadows, snaked through him, rooting him in place. He could feel the ground beneath him tremble once more, resonating with the energy of a world filled with both promise and treachery. Trust in the light. Her voice lingered, a beacon amid the darkness creeping ever closer. The laughter of the children had dimmed, replaced by a low, ominous hum that twisted the fabric of his vibrant surroundings. David took a shaky breath, his lungs feeling heavy, as if weighted down by the expectations of the past he had escaped from. He clenched his fists, the warmth of the grass contrasting against the cold fear gripping his heart. Was he really ready for this? Would revisiting the past he had tried to outrun only strengthen the shadows? Focus, he whispered to himself. You can do this. One step forward. Another. Each movement felt like wading through thick fog. The path before him twisted into an unrecognizable terrain, stretching far and wide, but the way ahead sparked a flicker of determination within. Suddenly, he felt a chill breeze crawl up his spine. In a rush, shadows sliced through the brightness, taking on grotesque forms that flitted just out of his sight. Faces emerged, whispering etched memories he thought long buried. Do you really think you can escape? They mocked, their voices merging in a cacophony. You belong to us. Not anymore. He shouted, surprisingly loud, conviction fueling his words. He took another step, willing himself to move forward despite the icy grip wrapping around his heart. David squeezed his eyes shut, prepared to confront the horde of swirling darkness. A deep breath. He opened his eyes. Before him materialized the figure of a boy, a younger version of himself, wide-eyed and trembling. David? The boy asked, uncertainty scrambling his features. Is that really you? David's breath caught. It was a memory, the fragile echo of a time when he felt lost and alone, deeply trapped under layers of fear and regret. "I'm here," he said, heart racing. "I'm here to help you." The boy's gaze faltered, filled with confusion and hurt, and David felt agony twist in his chest. "But I'm afraid they'll come for us." "I know," David spoke softly, granting warmth into the boy's panic. "But we can face them together. You're not alone anymore. I won't let them take you." With each beat of his heart, the shadows hesitated, their indignant whispers faltering, but the air still crackled with tension. The dark shapes writhed angrily, projecting their ancient power against his fortitude. Doubt flickered in David's mind. Was this enough? Did he truly have the strength to wield against them? "Trust yourself," he murmured, more to convince himself now. The boy nodded slowly, each shaky breath a testament to their shared courage. Surrounded by the swirling cacophony, David took another step toward the shadowy figures, his chin lifted high, heart racing anew, what felt like 1,000 eyes focused on him, fixing him in their sight. It was now or never. "I am not afraid," he yelled. "I choose to break free." And just like that, the shadows surged forward, drawn by his defiance. David tightened his grip on the boy's shoulder, summoning all the light that had been stirred in this realm. Could his own acceptance of the past serve as their shield? Were they truly strong enough to push back against the tide of fear? With another howl, the dark figures lunged, and chills raced down David's spine. Was the light he held within them enough? And as the chaos erupted around him, the colors of the world ignited with light, illuminating the void that threatened to swallow him whole. David yelled, his voice a clarion call for hope amid despair. What would happen next could either shatter him or set him free, but as the shadows collided with the light, a blinding flash enveloped everything and a haunting question lingered. Would the weight of his choices drag him down into darkness once more? A scorching light enveloped David and the boy, pushing against the shadows that writhed like hungry serpents. The colors flared brighter, pulsating with life as if the world itself was reacting to their fight. The air crackled with energy, the warm embrace of light wrestling against the encroaching darkness. "Hold on!" David shouted, squeezing the boy's small shoulder tighter as the shadows surged forward, clawing at the edges of their radiant haven. He could feel the chill of fear creeping into his bones again, threatening to pull him under the weight of uncertainty. The faces of his past twisted and morphed in front of him, leering with malicious delight. "You think you can save him?" A voice sneered, echoing through the chaos. "You're just a coward, hiding under false bravado." But he couldn't let that voice take root. "I am stronger than you think," David yelled, pouring everything he had into that shout. Inside, a storm of memories churned those moments of weakness, the times he had bowed down to their taunts, the shame he had carried too long. He gritted his teeth, focusing that pain into a bright shield, a beacon for both him and the boy. They pressed forward, fighting against the tide. The shadows twisted, but as David gave his all, the light around them transformed into blades of brilliance, slashing through the murky forms. "Just keep watching," he told the boy, a fire igniting in his chest. "Together, we can break this." A sudden roar filled the air, shadows recoiled, but they weren't giving up. The boy trembled beside him, and David glanced down, seeing the fear mirrored in the child's wide eyes. "What if we fail?" the boy whispered, the words laced with desperation. Tension spiked in David's chest. "No. We won't fail. The moment we believe we're lost is the moment we are." He lifted his chin, emboldened, knowing he had to be the light for both of them. As they pressed onward, shapes flitted in and out, each face dredging up deep-seated emotions. The laughter, the moments of betrayal, and the echoes of despair clawed at his mind, threatening to pull him down. The shadows danced cruelly, laughing as memories unfurled, the day he had lost everything, the night when darkness had consumed his heart. "No!" he shouted again, this time fueled by a boiling rage. "You don't control me anymore." With each word, he fed the fire within the insistence to reclaim his life, to unleash the truth. Light exploded around them, forcing the shadows to writhe and hiss, losing their form. Brighter and brighter it glowed, igniting an inferno of color that shattered the oppressive cacophony, but suddenly, from the chaos, a massive figure emerged, a dark silhouette that shimmered with a frightening familiarity. A hybrid of all his fears, it hovered just outside the edges of the light. "David," it hissed, "you can't escape me. You think this light will save you?" David's heart sank. Here stood a towering reminder of every misstep he had ever taken, every secret kept hidden. But he remembered the boy beside him, the courage swelling in their joined presence. "Shut up!" he cried, stepping forward. "I'm not afraid. You might be a part of me, but you don't define me." The shadows churned violently, frantically attempting to reclaim their dominance, but David could feel the warmth of certainty rising within him, pushing against the darkness. Would his defiance hold against this terrible embodiment of his fears? As light battled shadow, a pinprick of hesitation flickered in the massive silhouette. Was it faltering? The invading dread morphed into resolve as David surged forward, determined to end this once and for all, but just as he thrust his light forward, a deafening screech erupted, shattering the atmosphere around them. Everything trembled, and the ground beneath their feet cracked wide open. Fear gnawed at David's insides. Would this blinding spectacle lead to salvation or plunge them deeper into despair? In that moment of fracturing calm, David was left with one agonizing decision. How far was he willing to go to truly break free? As the shadows swirled threateningly, he had to confront the ultimate question: would embracing his deepest fears bring liberation, or would it seal their fate forever? David stood, heart racing, the echo of the shadow's shriek still ringing in his ears. The fissures in reality trembled at the weight of his choices, swirling colors fighting against an encroaching darkness that sought to reclaim him. He could feel the boy's trembling presence beside him, a fragile flicker of innocence battling against the adult fears that clawed at both of their hearts. "Will you let them win?" The boy's voice reached out, a soft question woven with the resilience of two intertwined souls. Taking a deep breath, David steadied himself, grounding his feet in the vibrant earth beneath him. "No," he whispered fiercely, conviction exploding within him like fireworks shattering the night. "No more. I am more than my fears." The shadows raged madly, but for the first time, David could feel the tide of light surging inside him, sparked by a truth he'd long suppressed. He turned his gaze toward the monstrous figure, his darkest regrets, the embodiment of despair that threatened to swallow him whole. "You are not me," he shouted. "I choose my path. I choose to fight." With each word, light radiated from his heart, illuminating the shadows that lashed out in a frenzied attempt to drown him. It screamed and writhed, the darkness morphing into faces of his past, the times he fell, the moments he succumbed. But this time, David held steadfast. They were memories but not his identity. "Show me what you're made of," he yelled, ignoring the chilling howl that rose from the shadows. "I will not back down." As if responding to his defiance, the shrouded figure recoiled, contorting grotesquely as David's inner light grew. Energy blasted forth, illuminating the darkness and causing it to hesitate, falter. "You think you can dispel me?" it hissed, desperation creeping into the venom of its voice. "You'll never escape." David clenched his fists, betrayal and sorrow igniting a fierce fire within him. "You don't control me," he declared, both to the shadows and himself. "I reclaim my life. I reclaim my truth." With that affirmation, the very ground beneath him shook. The landscape morphed, the shadows writhing in agony, struggling against the tide of pure conviction he radiated. Light flared brighter, cascading toward the boy, encasing them both in warmth. "Can you feel it?" David urged the boy, whose wide eyes mirrored the growing courage. "This is our moment." The boy nodded, fear replaced by wonder, as the shadows faltered, shrieking in protest against the brilliance consuming them. They pressed forward, and as the pulsating light enveloped them, the distorted forms began to fall apart, one by one, disintegrating into nothingness. Monstrous faces faded, panicked screams silenced. As the last remnant of shadow disintegrated, an overwhelming hush fell over the landscape. The familiar laughter of children returned, the warmth of the sun kissed the air, and the both of them stood amidst a kaleidoscope of colors, vibrant and alive. David the boy murmured, voice filled with awe, "We did it." For the first time, David felt the weight of darkness lifted. He turned, locking eyes with the boy who was once scared and alone. "We did this together," he affirmed, a smile stretching across his face. "You and I. We are free now. We can choose the light." In that moment, the radiant colors embraced them, weaving an unbreakable bond rooted in understanding, healing, and promise. They had faced their shadows together and emerged victorious. David took a deep breath, his heart swelling with gratitude. "This is only the beginning," he said, looking around at the shimmering new world stretching ahead of them. "Every step forward will be a choice together." As they began to walk into the vibrant horizon, shadows no longer loomed behind them. Instead, whispers of freedom danced in the air, echoing a resounding truth: their journey through darkness had forged a path to light that would continue to guide them, and with that, both David and the boy stepped forward into their new beginning, intertwined in a dance of light, ready to live. If you love this epic conclusion, then you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button for the algorithm. This is truly the moment to show your support. Flood the comments below with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about the ending. What do you think lies ahead for David and the boy? And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Your support makes a difference, and only true fans get how important it is.